All right, welcome back to the Historical Blunders Podcast. This week we're going to be talking about the Salem Witch Trials. I'm your host, Nate.
I'm Jake, and I have a new mic. Want the Salem Witch Trials in a nutshell? Well, here it goes. The warm and loving people of Salem went crazy and started hanging sweet old grandma. If that's not enough context and you want a little more, then let's roll. Alright, Salem Witch Trials. Before we get into the story, and this episode is going to read a little more like a story than our previous, we do want to do a little bit of background just to kind of paint a picture of what's going on and what the people were like in Salem.
Yeah, so basically, in the United States, most people are taught about the Salem Witch Trials, at least in history and usually high school. Not crazy deep, but I still remember us basically like a whole chapter in our book about it.
Yeah, they did it pretty light. Yeah.
I mean, not light, but I mean, not as light as it probably should.
We're about to get in the deep. I hope you got your hip
We're
boots
going
on.
deep.
Shit's getting deep.
That's okay. We'll allow it.
Yeah, so to start off, right, Salem is a town in Massachusetts. It's 14 miles from Boston, so it's very much in that vicinity, even back in the day. It is on the ocean.
It is on the ocean.
As Nate has corrected me, I said it was close to the ocean. But, I mean, what is on the ocean anyways? You know? But
It's on the ocean. That's what it is.
All right, whatever.
So, technically, this all took place in Salem, Massachusetts, but village of Salem, not like Salem proper, so not the actual city, because the village of Salem was more agricultural, and basically what is now known as Danvers, Massachusetts.
Yeah, I mean, and it has to do with some of the split that was going on at the town at the time.
They were splitting it for like tax reasons and stuff
before
like that.
Before we get into that, I think we just want to briefly go over what the Puritan
Gotta love the damn
people
Puritans.
were like, because these weren't exactly the cool guys at the party, you know?
No, they were the prude ancestors.
Yeah, essentially they saw the Catholic Church in Europe and were like, you guys aren't doing it hard enough. Like, you guys are too nice.
You guys aren't as metal as we are.
Exactly. So they were the fire and brimstone crazy, you know, we'll go into a couple things here.
Yeah, thing I read about Puritans, they're Calvinism, which, I mean, is just a hardcore branch of Catholicism. But one thing they actually believed in was double predestination.
Double?
Yeah. So
one more than one?
So predestination, basically, like, in regular Catholicism and everything, like, you're predetermined to go where, like, you're predetermined to go to heaven. They were basically like, okay, people are predetermined to go to heaven, but you're also predetermined to be damned.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
So you think the preacher was like, it's over for you.
There's like a little kid
He
just
picks up the baby. He picks up the baby for baptism. He's like, you might as well just not waste your time. This thing's going to hell.
Yeah, this one, yeah. What's his name? He's just going
straight to hell. Straight to hell. I mean, the way that they treated children and women, too, were particularly harsh.
It was so insane.
It plays into a lot of this story, so it's worth mentioning that.
Yeah.
I mean, the children especially, like, the way they kind of took it like you had to break their will to train your children. Like
they went the military aspect.
Yeah.
But with church.
Because, so, technically in their society, this is crazy, a child could be put to death for cursing their parents. Like I hope that didn't happen frequently, but
I really
just the
hope
fact
so.
that it was like accepted and okay,
Yeah,
is batshit crazy.
Well,
know?
it's crazy. Is like, I mean, you go to the mall now and you see kids just yelling at their parents, screaming. Back in the day,
dude,
Get rid of those little
Ain't
fuckers.
no gentle parenting with those Puritans, man.
No gentle parenting.
Let's talk about your feelings. I know why you're feeling this way, but you're going to hell. We're gonna put you to
Your sister? You see her behaving?
No.
Heaven. You? Hell.
Yeah, I mean, and going with the women's side of it too, the men were thought to be, every person were thought to have a masculine, immortal, pure masculine side inside of them. But they also had a feminine half that was agents of Satan. So, in general, women were treated as agents of Satan. That
So
if there was sin going on, a woman probably had to do with it, and it wasn't a guy.
Yeah, it wasn't the guy's fault. It was always the woman.
So, Puritans, in general, kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, those are like the deep South Baptists that are psycho-religious
I mean,
on steroids.
what ends up happening is the kids are just psychos.
Yeah.
Like, they're not normal people. They're mentally traumatized.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, like we said, they're going the military aspect. You break their will and basically force them to follow.
Yeah, just let them play Xbox, man.
Like, the Bible to them was like, if you don't live your life by the Bible every single second, like, yeah, you're going to hell.
I mean, and yeah, they obviously a lot of the time in Christian history, people twist the Bible too.
Well, yeah.
To
And what's insane to me about that is just the stupid shit that happens in Salem.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we talked a little bit about it last week of how, like, I think some of it was going into land ownership and getting kind of like that.
I got shit on my shorts. I don't know what the fuck.
That's what I'm just like,
chicken wing sauce. I don't know.
But like, I don't know if that had something to play with. But it's like that's kind of a scummy thing to do for someone that's preaching like we got to be straight with God.
Yeah. So just to paint a picture, Puritans are dicks, right? And they're on the ocean, and they're in this town in Massachusetts, right? So, I mean, one thing I wanted to say too, my dad tells a story of either great-grandfather, I think it was his great-grandfather, and he would always see him and say, do you know, every time he saw him, like, when my dad was a kid, he's like, do you know that you're a sinner? Do you know that you're a sinner? And my dad was like, yeah.
I just pictured it just like, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so the Puritans are bad, and this takes place in Salem, Massachusetts.
The Puritans are bad.
So the rest of this, we're gonna really kind of stick to a story.
Yeah.
And then go through.
That's the topic this week with Salem, is that it's just more of a story driven, because it's not like something that got spread out over like years and years and years and so many different. It's literally like a year.
Yeah, and this might be a longer podcast too. We'll see.
It probably will be. It's okay.
But Nate's also been to Salem, so he's
I
all
have been to
excited.
Salem. I love
Sitting
Salem.
there
That was so much
vibrating.
fun.
So I'll do my best to interrupt you and piss you off today.
God damn it.
So the story of Salem is really like a snowball effect. It just keeps picking up, and it all starts, somewhere. And where it really starts is early spring of 1692. And at that time, smallpox had ravaged through the town previous to that and killed about 500 people. And times were pretty hard in Salem.
Yeah, Salem was a rough time in 1692. Like, you had
British
native
colonies were rough, yeah.
Well, I mean, you had attacks from natives. You had the smallpox outbreak. And it was just kind of a shit year for crops and stuff. And they were not doing well. They were struggling a little bit. And they were dicks.
Huge dicks. But so there's that. Because of how things were progressing in the city, you started to have divisions, and like some of the more established families, like the Putnams, that had been there for a longer time.
I would say the Putnams.
Putnams?
Yeah. The very wealthy family, though.
I will kiss you on the mouth if you
Please don't.
like that.
Please don't. You're sick. Save it for when you're not.
Yeah, I don't know if you... Yeah, I'm drinking tea right now to try and save my voice because I've been coughing for the last goddamn week. So hopefully this sounds okay. My new mic should make up for it. I was going to eat a pickle, like an ASMR thing, but I don't have the stomach for that.
Pansy.
So, anyways, the Putnams, fuck you, whatever.
I've just read it.
The Putnams. The Putnams were an established family that had been
Yes.
there for a long time, and a lot of the issue started with the Proctors. The Proctors were more city side and were kind of more up and coming and very successful.
But yeah, to say they were still another wealthy family.
Yep.
So the parents of Proctor and of John Proctor, of the guy that we're going to be talking about, they actually moved from England when John Proctor was 3, and then moved to Salem and all that. But they were still like a very wealthy family then too.
Mm-hmm.
And they owned a lot of property. Same with
they owned taverns and stuff like that. Like they were doing good. And one of the things was the Proctors were getting timber off of the land that they thought they had bought, and the Putnams thought like that was our inherited land, you son of a bitch. And the issue with the time too was they didn't have a localized government.
Yes, and nothing was like surveyed. Nothing was.
No.
I mean, that's why the freaking American-Canadian border changed so much in Maine and all that.
Yeah.
Over the years was just, I mean, even after America was established, there was still unknown stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what happens in the trials is they arrest a bunch of people and then they can't try them for a while.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that later, but the Putnams really are kind of like extremely capitalist-like family, the way that they operate. It's almost like Bill Gates like great relative to me. When I read about him, it sounds like he's a cutthroat
businessman.
Anything you can do businessman. I mean, the Proctors are probably too. It sounds like the Proctors are better at it than the Putnams. You know?
The Putnams.
So that's you'll hear a lot of Putnam versus Proctor in Salem, and that's kind of where it starts at. They agreed largely on the land disputes that were going on, and they were kind of a microcosm for the city folk versus like the country folk a little bit. And then here comes Samuel Parris. You want to talk about Samuel Parris?
Fucking Samuel Parris.
He's a piece of shit.
So
there's a lot of piece of shits, but
so Samuel Parris was the reverend in Salem for the Puritan Church, and ironically, his niece was one of the first girls to start, displaying symptoms.
Being afflicted, yeah.
Yeah, being afflicted by witchcraft.
But Parris himself, he used to be a farmer, right, in Barbados and came over.
Yeah, and that's why he had Tituba, his Caribbean slave.
Yep, lived in the house with them.
Yep.
Right?
For the most part, she actually was like a very good slave, but she was well liked, treated well by the family,
well respected.
Yeah. I mean, for the times,
dancing a line here.
Yeah, I know. Like she would spend a lot of time with the kids and stuff like that. And what the hell are the two girls' names?
Oh, it was
Betty
Abigail
Parris.
And
Abigail Williams and Betty
yeah.
Parris. So Betty Parris is the niece of the Reverend. But yeah, he was very hardcore Puritan. He was the fire brimstone.
Yep.
What you don't want.
He's a son of a bitch. And in the midst of this, he had just come off this big fight with the city on negotiating his salary. Right? He was fighting with how, he needs to be paid more in food or firewood or whatever weird system of payment they did back then.
I don't want money. I need wood.
But I know that he had fought with the community a couple times with negotiating his pay. And it was important to him, and it comes out in the story, that he was a prominent, important part of the community.
Yeah.
Like, that was important to him in a very selfish way. It was not like he was a good reverend. It was more, he had to serve himself. Control. Yeah. He was trying to serve himself.
Yeah.
Is really the point I'm trying to make.
And so he kind of led the charge because Betty Parris, his niece, then this Abigail Williams, they were 9 and 11 at the time. So they actually started showing symptoms of being afflicted in January of 1692. But they were just like, okay, they're sick, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And they could not find anything. And then springtime rolled around, and eventually they had all the doctors looking at them and stuff, and they were like, you know what? It's the evil hand of the witches.
Yeah, the doctor came was like, I don't know.
What's the only way to describe something you don't know?
So like
witches.
So yeah, I explained the fits last week as like a stroke or seizure.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's the case, actually.
No, for them, it was like convulsions. And
yeah. So, like, they explain it like it's an exorcist type thing.
Yeah.
So, I'll say this, though. Like, they don't have the fucked up movies we have with exorcists where, like, people are, like, climbing on the wall. I don't watch those
their
movies.
Head around.
I don't watch those movies anyways, so I don't even know myself. But I know that all they probably had to do was, like crawl on the floor, and they were like, oh, it's an exorcist. There's a demon in there.
She recited some Latin. They're like, she should know that.
Like, these are people that don't watch TV, and they're super fucking strict.
Yeah.
Like, they're not
I wonder what the
cool kids at the party.
I wonder what their baseline for exorcisms were back then. She sneezed in a weird way. Demons.
He snapped both of his fingers at the same time.
What?
The devil! The devil!
And so these girls started doing all these convulsions.
Some of them would be real still, too,
Yeah.
right?
They were yelling.
Yeah.
And
they're full of shit, too.
Full of shit.
They're full of shit. Honestly, think about it, too. Those kids are extremely traumatized.
So, yeah.
Those kids are, especially the preacher's kids, because he was, like, the Puritan of the Puritans. Like, those kids aren't normal kids, because not only, like, it's so strict and traumatic, but the times, too.
Yeah.
Right? There's times where they go without food. There's times where, you know, people die at a young age that probably messes with them, you know? Like, you know...
Colonial America
was a
fucked up place.
Yeah, fucked up place.
So, an article I was reading about Abigail Putnam and Betty Paris is that they could actually, like, read, too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
And they were
frowned upon in the Puritan society?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, being family of the Reverend, like, maybe they expect you to be a little more educated.
Yeah, maybe.
But they're saying that they may have read about witchcraft from the library of Reverend Paris because of all the Puritan shit. Because they printed books of witchcraft and how to prosecute witchcraft and stuff like that. And so that was the thing I read, is that maybe that's where they got the idea.
That's what put them in their mind. Mm-hmm. So the other thing I would suggest too is that Tituba did do some voodoo Caribbean stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like, not as
Creole.
not like, hey, let's go sacrifice a goat and like cast a spell and kill people. It was like silly stuff, you know.
And there might have been to, like, you know, get the kids to like her.
Yeah. Like, it's
like trying to show off.
It's more a game than like.
Yeah, she wasn't trying to put a hex on these kids.
Yeah, it's like one of those Ouija board things. You know, they're just having some fun. But it might have put, like, the kids were probably like, Dad wouldn't like this. You know, because Dad was...
Uncle.
Oh, Uncle?
Uncle.
Well, Uncle for one of them. The other one was this kid, wasn't it?
Mm-mm.
They were both nieces?
Well, Abigail Williams was not related to Paris, but Betty Paris was the niece, but lived with them.
What a loser. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyways... So they start being afflicted, and then all of a sudden they accuse 3 people.
Yep.
Right? They accuse Tituba to start, and they accuse... Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's not true. They accuse Sarah Good, right?
Well, Sarah Good, Tituba, and Sarah Osborne.
Yeah.
A little backstory. Sarah Good came from a wealthy family. Her father actually had, like, a bunch of land there and committed suicide.
Yep.
And so, but she had a lot of siblings and stuff. But weird in Puritan society is like, okay, your father died, your brother's getting all your land, not you.
Right.
Women can't really. But they gave her a small sliver. But eventually she married some indentured servant, spent all their money. He died, and creditors actually came after and took all of her land. And so she actually ended up on the streets begging and everything, and that's how she ended up there.
Yeah. She kind of blew the inheritance away.
Yeah. And so then
the Puritan version of strippers and cocaine.
And then Sarah Osborne, because Tituba was the Caribbean slave of Reverend Paris. Sarah Osborne was a widow who took all the land from her kids for herself and her new lover, and then actually got in a bunch of legal issues with her kids over the land and disputes and stuff. And I think that's what kind of led to it, is it wasn't the norm for a woman to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of made her an outcast, even though she was like...
They weren't regular parts of the church either.
Yeah,
right?
That was a big thing too, is they weren't.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, like, all three women were not of, like, high class in the city.
Like, Sarah Good was a beggar on the street.
Right.
Tituba was a slave, and then Sarah Osborne was just an oddball because she didn't need no man to do her shit. And so they were kind of targeted right off the bat.
So it was like the low-hanging fruit to start, right? It was like, if there's any witches here, it's probably these three women.
It's the ones not conforming to regular society.
Right. Starts with that. That's the initial snowball, right? It's a little tiny snowball, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But that's kind of like the first section of the story, right? Now we have these kids having fits, and they accuse some people. Those people start to be interrogated, and that's kind of the next step. And this is where it kind of gets a little more elevated. But these women were arrested, and they were examined by Reverend Paris.
Yeah.
So, funny fact, Reverend Paris thought that the church was able to decipher if someone was a demon or not. Like, his thing was, the church was able to tell that one of the 12 disciples was evil, so he has the authority to say that someone is evil or not, and that should be taken, with autonomy.
Yeah.
Right?
Like law.
Right. So, they start questioning these women. They question Sarah Good. They check Osborne as well, and both of them say, nope, I'm not a witch. You're crazy. Go fuck yourself. They don't say that.
Yeah,
but
they separate them too.
Oh, do they?
I think Sarah Good, they sent her away to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then eventually they bring them all together. But that was a big thing, is that they were trying to like isolate them, trying to get them to rat on each other.
Right. Yeah, I mean, common tactics.
Interrogation tactics.
So both of them would not confess to being a witch, right?
Yep.
And then Tituba. So
in her defense.
Side note, Reverend Paris is a piece of shit, right?
Horrible piece of shit.
The religious leader, and he beats Tituba basically into a confession, essentially. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just what they do. That's how they did it in medieval Europe.
Yeah, medieval Europe.
The witch hunts last week, like, that was the thing, is they tortured the shit out of people. They had like a
system of torture.
Basically, just, we're gonna torture the living shit out of you till you confess. And that was, I mean, Tituba stood her ground for a while, but then just eventually you just get the shit rocked out of you.
So eventually she confessed, right, and said, "Yeah, I'm a witch." But then she gives this like story and kind of feeds into their questions, because it's one of those things where they're like, "All right, you're a witch, right?" And then they're like, "Where were you on this day?" And she's like, "Oh, I was there." Like, she kind of goes along with how they're leading the story along, and it just
she's hoping the beatings stop if you just play along with their narrative,
right? Because we're already in Fantasyland, like, we might as well go crazy. Or maybe she's trying to fuck everyone up too. I don't know. But what does happen, and that's a key part to how it starts to grow, was she said, "Oh yes, there's not just me and them. There's 9 other names of witches that are here that aren't being accused currently." And now all of a sudden, right, you got crazy pastor dude, you got kids going in fits accusing people, and now you have a witch, because she has confessed, saying that there's a bunch of other witches, and now everyone's like, all right, we need to go get them. So that's really
the pyramid scheme.
It's really like a spark, right? It's how it starts. So now we've entered into a new chapter where the girls are accusing more and more people, Anne Putnam is kind of at the center of the girls that are afflicted. Yeah.
So what's weird is, on our notes, you have Ann Putnam Jr. and Ann Putnam Sr. Like, I don't know how they do that for women.
Yeah, I don't know either.
and
junior
but
and senior,
but yes, the
it's
mother,
mom and daughter.
yeah, mom and daughter are both named Ann Putnam.
Yeah.
And so if you hear Junior, it's the daughter. Senior will be the mother.
The girl. So the Putnams too were a huge part of the accuser group, and that kind of puts the Proctor versus Putnams into focus, because now it's like, is it just the kids being like, yeah, we need that family to go away because they're taking our land, or we could get their land if they go away. So it's like, it's a little too coincidental,
Yes,
I think, to knock it otherwise.
that there's disagreements between the families, and then next witch accusations start flying.
And the afflicted girls too, like, and now it's not just the Betty and Abigail.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like
There's
12.
Yeah,
right?
8 or 12 of them.
And the community starts to treat them like saints, right? They're the rock stars. They're gonna come identify the witches for us, so that we can be freed of the sin. And like, they were paraded around, and like, but the truth was, like, they were just gangster. Like, if you had an issue with the afflicted girls, they'd fuck you up, man. They would put you in prison, and obviously bad things came later, but at the time, like, it started to get real bad, and the afflicted girls were like rock stars, pretty much.
Can I add a little side note for you?
Please.
Something to make you so happy. So, as of last week, we introduced the witch cakes.
We need to do a live show and have witch cakes there.
It'll just be a ho-ho.
Authentic witch cakes.
I can do that. So in February of 1692, a slave known as John Indian was instructed to make a witch cake to try helping these young girls. And the lady that did it was Mary Sibley. Eventually, the witch cake did not work, and the church actually was like, hey, what the hell are you doing?
Let me teach you something.
Well, they're like, you're allowing witch cakes to be made? What the hell?
Dude, yeah.
Are you a witch? And then eventually they're like, okay, she's not a witch. But I found the witch cake, and I wanted to tell you about it. It's like needle in the haystack. It's the witch cake and the witch hunt.
It's funny because witch cakes were used a couple times in Salem too.
Yeah.
Weird.
Because Tituba, I think, even made one too.
Yeah. Oh, we should go through what they are. So witch cakes are a method that they would use to confirm that someone's a witch, and they would take the afflicted people's urine,
mix it with rye.
They'd mix it with rye, make a cake out of it, and they would feed it to a dog. And actually, if the dog got sick and they took the curse from the afflicted person, that would be a sign that
it was witchcraft.
It was witchcraft or something. But
listen to last week's
what
episode.
A fucking 2 weeks ago. Way to do
I know. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in a world who is going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com.
That's right, Nate. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. Yeah, I'm really glad we chose BetterHelp as a sponsor for this podcast, because I've had people in my own life that have struggled with mental health and anxiety and depression. And therapy was something that definitely helped them overcome those struggles. And now they're in a much better place.
Yeah, I use BetterHelp, and so far so good.
Yeah, I wasn't really talking about you.
Oh.
BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days.
And sometimes faster. It only took a couple hours for me.
That's right. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in our description. It's betterhelp.com/historicalblunderspod.
All one word.
That's right. Clicking that link helps support this channel, But it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and get the support that you need.
And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in network, or anything like that.
So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/historicalblunderspod.
And that's betterhelphelp.com.
People were so stupid back then.
I just want to know the person that came up with a witch cake.
They were only living to like 16, right? Something.
They lived longer than that, but not much.
Well, they're probably fighting for their life every day.
Sarah Osborne was old as shit. Sarah Good was 39.
Rebecca Nurse was 71.
Yeah, Rebecca Nurse was 71. Old. Poor Rebecca Nurse.
We're jumping ahead though.
Yeah.
Right.
Was Osborne never? Oh, she was not. She died in prison. She was 49.
Yeah. So so the accused started to grow, and one of the issues was they had a prison that wasn't built for the volume of people being put in prison.
Yeah, because it was like, I think at the end of it all, it was like over 200 people.
Yeah,
were accused.
Yeah. I don't know about arrested, but I do know that people died in the prison because what had to happen was they would arrest people. And since, like I said, there was no local government at the time, they were waiting for Britain to come back with someone that would rule them.
Because this was still pre-United States.
Yeah, this is the British colonies. The U.S. has not come yet. Yeah, but they didn't have a local government, so what they had to do was arrest them. They sit in prison for a couple months before they just
someone of authority can show up.
And I know that the people in prison were probably like, "Man, I hope the guy comes not a stupid piece of shit." But that didn't happen. That didn't go well either.
Jokes on them.
Jokes on them.
But yeah, so just the Putnams just kept accusing people too. Sadly, Dorcas Good.
Yeah,
Sarah Good's daughter, 4 years old, was accused of witchcraft. She was never executed. She was imprisoned, and then there's other name, like sometimes that she's referred to as Dorothy Good.
Yeah,
but it's Dorca.
What a great! I should have named my daughter that.
I know. I'm thinking for the next one.
Hey, Dork.
Hey, Dork.
Get over here.
Bring me a beer. But yeah.
No, that's terrible.
So it's just the girls were getting good at accusing people, doing their little fits.
They were polishing their performance.
Yes, and basically they were just picking people.
It would be, if someone was a threat to their family, a lot of times they would accuse them. I don't know if it's the dad being like, "Hey, yo, what about John Proctor? Like, guys, take him out." Like, I don't know if it's that, where it's just like the kids pick up on.
Yeah.
Who do you have, like, who would you see as like a shady guy or someone that challenges you or someone that's an enemy? Do you just automatically start going crazy? Be like, "They're a witch," But they would a big part of it too. They would say like the witches were burning their flesh, or like they were pinching them without actually touching them. So like the girls would be like, "Ah, ah!" like screaming out, hollering, and like to that society probably that was a pretty jarring thing to see.
Yes.
Like, oh, like, how
especially with how
uptight they were,
how uptight, how like quiet and just stick to your thing you were supposed to be, and then these girls are just sitting there screaming. I think they said that it was like knitting needles.
Yeah,
getting stabbed with, and it's just stupidity. But
like these people have never been to a college party. I've been to a college party. I've seen a lot of stupid shit, and it's kind of like,
boy, I've been to a college party.
I used to host a lot of college parties.
I know, I was there,
but I mean, it's just you get used to the chaos, and they were not chaos people. So anytime these girls would act out, they'd get attention.
Yeah,
right. They got better at it. And they were the heroes, right? Oh,
they were the celebrities in town.
Celebrities, that's right. They were afflicted, and they still. So like it starts building and building, and all of a sudden you got all these people being put in the prison. Finally, they get a legal system installed.
Yeah.
You want to go through that?
Yeah, Governor Phibbs from England finally showed up. And that is because I think they started requesting him. They requested him a while ago.
Yeah.
And it just took forever. But finally in May of 1692, he showed up and started,
I don't think Phibbs was terrible, was he?
I mean,
He wasn't great.
He wasn't great. I
he
mean,
wasn't like the Reverend Paris character.
No, Paris was like...
Because at this time, he was using the hysteria as like a means of look how much this community needs me right now.
Yes, like I'm the church leader, and look at all this Satan in our community.
He was really enabling the afflicted girls.
Yes, and
especially since it was like his niece and others.
And I think, like you said, like with him arguing about his salary, like trying to show his importance to the community, it'd be like, you see all this shit, I need money. Because I need stuff.
Yeah, the other part to that too, that we should probably mention, is that the Proctors didn't love Reverend Paris. They kind of opposed him as a preacher, and obviously he took the side of the Putnams to try and kind of fuck up the Proctor family.
Yeah.
So
yeah, to me, majority of this was more or less like political hunting. Like it was just.
Yeah. It's less.
I mean, it's not political because it was the church, but at the same time, the church was kind of the government back then.
That's how it is back then. Yeah.
And so it was a witch hunt, literally, but politically. Like it was people that opposed them, people that had issues with the way they were doing things.
Crazy little kids.
Crazy kids. And so Phibbs showed up, finally started convicting people, and
he installed a court, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't convicting people. He installed a court.
He installed the actual system for people to get convicted and actually tried for witchcraft.
The people he put there fucked up. Pretty good. But yeah, so they did finally start, like, what do you call it? Trying these people, right? And I think they actually started doing the executions then, too. And one of the things was, if you didn't confess to witchcraft, you would be executed.
Yes.
Which is wild, because if you did confess, everyone who confessed still lived at the end of this. Which is stupid.
Yeah.
But all the people that said, no, I'm not a witch, were put to death. One of those, learning moments in history.
Are you a witch? Sure.
Sure, just don't kill me. See, I told you. Yeah. So, I mean, Bridget Bishop was the first one to be executed.
Yeah, June 10th, 1692.
And she, I don't even know if she had been accused before that, but she was commonly a anti-Puritan beliefs.
Yeah, spoke out against the church.
Yeah, she had her issues with the church.
She was 60 years old.
60 years old?
Yep.
She was pretty in her documentary.
Well, you gotta keep people.
That's funny, because a lot of the accusations against her were along the lines of, she's visited me in the night and had her way with me.
You got grandma climbing through your window, like, hips popping. Come here, sonny.
So what it really means is some guy's laying in bed next to his wife, getting all red-faced, thinking of a 60-year-old woman.
Oh, yeah.
So, but
executed by hanging.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. With Salem, no one was burned.
Yeah, no witches were burned. Sorry, Rob Zombie.
Yeah, if you're talking about witch burnings, it's all Europe.
Yep. So in Salem, they have a thing. I think it was like Gallows Hill. It was on the edge of town. I did not visit it when I was there. They said it really. I mean, it was like there's like a tree and like a little plaque, so it was something to see. But it was
kind of creepy.
I mean, if you think about it, yeah. I mean, it wasn't like,
or it's just a tree.
It wasn't a shit ton of people, but I mean, it was still. Was it 19 people total that got hung because of it. But yeah, so they started executing people, taking them out. I mean, I think July was the busiest. Nope, September was the busiest month.
Yeah, so I mean,
it was all in one day.
Yeah, all. So they kind of did like stepped systems where they would execute some and they would wait a while because
hoping to scare the others.
Yeah, right. I mean that, and they would also kind of reach out to some other people in Boston, like, "Hey, we're like hanging people here for witchcraft. Is that something you guys do too, or is this kind of
Is that just
fucked
us?
up?" But so one of the things too that they would use in the trials was spectral evidence. Spectral evidence was a key part of the Salem witch trials because basically it's just the evidence, your concrete evidence to say someone is a witch is someone else saying that they're a witch.
Yeah.
Because they're afflicting me with whatever.
I had a dream last night. She was a witch.
Well, let's hang her.
Okay, that's enough.
That's which is why it starts with the low class, low hanging fruit kind of people. And then it goes and grows into Rebecca Nurse.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet old Rebecca Nurse. Can I talk about Rebecca?
Yeah, you can talk about Rebecca.
This breaks my heart. But Rebecca Nurse was tried and executed as a witch. Which, she was one of the earlier ones,
yeah, she was the third.
Yeah, which is just, well. So, she was a noble and highly regarded member of the community and the church.
Might have been the second. Top 5.
You gonna interrupt me? Or?
Sorry.
I will kiss you on the mouth.
Whoa.
She was 71 years old. She was kind. She was gentle. I like to think of her like Mama Coco from the movie Coco, you know?
It's on upstairs.
Like, is it really?
Yeah, I turned it on.
It's a good movie.
It's a great
But she's
movie.
so sweet. She doesn't know what she's doing.
No.
You know, she can't hear. And one of the things that happened with her, when they were trying her, they said something along the lines of, "Are you with these other women?" And that was the accused witches. And she like heard it as, "Are you one of the accused witches?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, I'm one of the accused." Yeah. So she said yes.
Yeah.
But what they said was, "Are you with the witches?" And she couldn't hear it because she's 71 years old.
71 back then. Holy
yeah.
fuck.
Yeah, she's like 300.
I mean, 71 still now is still
Everyone
old,
else is 15.
Yeah.
And she...
yeah,
but she's one of the only ones with a marked grave. Ann Putnam was the accuser, the mom,
what a
senior.
Bitch.
Yeah.
What a bitch.
And the thing was, Rebecca Nurse was from one of the bigger families in the area.
Yeah.
So that was one of the Putnam, Bill Gates' great grandma doing her thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Bill Gates too. You ever hear the thing about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs?
No.
Steve Jobs, they'd say if you go into a business meeting with him, it was like a boxing match. If you go into a meeting with Bill Gates, it was like a knife fight. So he was brutal, and he just got you. So I like to think of the Putnams as Bill Gates, because they were just like, let's get him killed. Psycho people.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, is a thing that I've thought about with the witch trials, is that, like, started off getting rid of basically the scum.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not calling them scum, but the scum of the town. You know, the poor people, the beggars, the just people that in their minds aren't conforming to their regular lifestyle. And then it kind of snowballed into these girls, you know, you're kind of running out of people to accuse, and they don't want to.
They don't want to stop.
They don't want to stop, and so
They're
start
loving it.
And so they start, I mean, accusing like really important people, and it's like, oh shit.
Or people that are fucking with their family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel bad for. I mean, I feel bad for all of them, because this is stupid.
I mean, and so it wasn't like the whole city too was like, oh, there's witches, let's go get them all. There was definitely factions that were against the witch hunts. There was some critical thinkers, we'll say.
Yeah, because
they were like, I think this is bullshit, especially after the hangings. I like to think there was a time after like each grouping of hangings where people were like, can we just be done with this? Or like, can we not hang people?
Yeah, because didn't people... Yeah, people sign a petition to release Rebecca Nurse.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
I think it was like 70 names or something. Like a huge amount of people for the time were like, when she got arrested, the whole, like a lot of the town was like, what?
No.
What are you talking about? Like, sweet old Rebecca Nurse. Like she, you know, she was one where she never could tell a lie. They like, when they tried her, they begged her like, please confess, because we don't want to kill you because you're so nice. But the thing is, she was such a noble person, and very rooted in Puritan ways.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be able to lie. She's Mama Coco. You know?
Mama Coco.
I mean, a little more aware. but you know, she was very sweet, and they executed her.
Yeah. Poor Rebecca Nurse died July 19th, 1692, at the age of 71.
Wow.
On Gallows Hill.
And then there's John Proctor. You want to go through John Proctor?
Yeah, so he was accused by the Putnams, of course.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And so it wasn't just women. I think it was John Proctor, John Willard, George Jacobs Sr., a Reverend, George Burroughs. I mean, it wasn't just women getting accused of this, but John Proctor was accused and was put to death in August. So even August 19th was a busy day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like 5 people died on August 19th, and 4 of them were men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where Giles was at?
No. No, poor Giles. He was in September. He was towards the end of it all.
What happened with Giles?
So, it's a weird thing to say, like, this was, like, my favorite death of the witch trials. Dude was a badass.
Talking about Captain Crunch?
Oh, don't say that. So, Giles Corey was a established farmer, had a lot of property, had kids. His wife, Martha Corey, was also accused of witchcraft, and he kind of helped.
He had a hand in that, didn't he?
Did.
He was like, hey, my wife was reading some weird book the other day or something.
But ironically, he was killed before she was. So she was accused of witchcraft, tried and all that, and then he got accused of witchcraft. And the thing is, if you got accused of witchcraft and found guilty, you lost your property. Just like in medieval Europe, like, and that's what I think a lot of it was, but land grabs. But Giles Corey, according to the legend, was
your hero.
Yeah, was pressed to death. Which, what I've read is that he was stripped naked, put in a field, sandwiched between 2 boards.
They did do old guys too then. We
Because
talked about it last week.
Oh shit! Yeah, yeah. So in America,
we talked about how they stripped women naked.
They stripped women naked, but yeah,
week.
they stripped Giles Corey naked. He was 81 years old at the time.
81?
81.
Oh, come on!
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Martha was 72. There was a 9-year age difference.
That's not that much.
Back then, though, how?
I mean, like,
how
when did they
young?
meet?
Yeah, how young was she when they were?
Was he 19 when they met? Because
I hope.
Yeah.
No, not even. Fuck.
You hope that? So she would be 10.
Yeah, no,
He would be
I don't
19.
want that. I don't want that. He needs to be in his 30s. But so he was sandwiched between 2 boards, and pressing is when they stack stones on you, eventually suffocating you, crushing you.
He wouldn't plead, right? Was his thing.
So their big thing was they'd put a stone on. Are you a witch? Nope. Another stone. And by the end of it, according to the legend, his last words were, they asked him if he was a witch, and he said, put another on.
Yep. More weight.
Yeah. Badass.
Yeah. Like, bring it on, bitch.
Well, then he died.
Yeah.
But he was never convicted of being a witch.
Yeah.
And so his family was able to keep the property because he was a very wealthy farmer.
I didn't know that part.
Mm-hmm.
Captain
But the
Crunch.
only person...
Captain Crunch Corey.
He was the only person that was executed by a different mean. Everyone else was executed by hanging.
What about the dogs?
The dogs?
There's 2 dogs that were executed as part of the trial.
Fucking Puritans.
Dude, yeah.
That's the worst part. You kill... God, fuck you. I hate that. Say an whole episode all over again.
I wonder how they did it, too.
Do you think they made him eat a witch cake, and when they started spazzing out, they're like, all right, hang him.
Can you hang a dog?
Yeah.
Huh.
Why couldn't you?
I don't know.
They have necks and windpipes.
I don't want. Okay.
Yeah, I don't like where this is going.
No, let's think about this for a second.
Well, let's picture this. So
after they started doing like those fall executions, right?
Yes.
Eventually, there was a lot of, again, it happened throughout the trials, where there was a lot of back and forth on should spectral evidence be allowed in the trials. And after a certain time frame, they stopped allowing spectral evidence. Yeah. And that really stopped the hangings pretty much.
Yeah. So just to kind of get a grasp of everything, accusations started in the spring. They didn't start executing people till June, because that's by the time they actual tried and convicted people. And then basically it was all right, it wasn't done, but they stopped executing people in September.
When was Captain Crunch?
September 19th, 1692. And then September 22nd was when they did their busy day. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, including Martha Corey, John's wife, or Giles' wife.
She was executed?
She was executed by hanging. Yeah.
A couple of women got away with being pregnant, or claiming to be pregnant at least.
Oh,
John Proctor's wife did that, Elizabeth.
Yeah, she is. So, technically, 20 people were executed in Salem. 19 by hanging, 1 by pressing. 5 more died, so my 26 people total died. It was only 24.
2 dogs.
Oh, well, if we want to consider that, then yes, it was 26. Haha, I was right. But 5 more died in prison.
I think you said 25 last episode.
Did I?
Yeah.
That was 26.
It is 25. Fuck you.
Damn. So, Sarah Osborne, one of the first accused, she died in jail, but in May. So still, before. She's awaiting for this dude to show up from Britain.
Dude, she didn't even know how bad shit was going to go.
Yeah.
She's probably like, I'm the only one to die out of all this. Like, honey, just hold your breath here. It's going to get crazy.
So, Anne Foster died in December of 1692 at 75 years old, 21 weeks of being imprisoned and being tortured, and she finally confessed, but died in prison.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. Lydia Dustin died in, I guess she was the last one, March 10th of 1693, after 11 months of being imprisoned.
Had they already, pardoned the witches at that point? Because I know...
She did. She was acquitted of her...
Yeah.
But she couldn't afford to pay the fees, and so they kept her in jail.
Yeah. If you couldn't afford the fees for being in prison for that time, you would owe them, and you would pay it back by just staying in prison, I guess.
I don't know.
That's kind of stupid.
That's so stupid and so shitty.
And it happened too with Tituba, right? Where she had to stay in prison for a while because she, couldn't afford.
Well, yeah, she was a slave. She didn't have.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, give her. What are you supposed to do? But so eventually, what ends up happening too, right? Governor Phibbs's wife, she gets accused of witchcraft. Why are you looking at me like that?
Can I not look at you? You're talking.
I mean, I know I'm fantastically good looking right now. Sleeveless shirt.
Yeah.
No, his wife gets accused of witchcraft, which I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this was a clever move by someone.
I want to know who did it.
They don't really have that information.
I know. It'd be cool if they did.
But I like to think that one of the afflicted girls was like, this is getting out of hand and it's bullshit. And we're like, we shouldn't be killing people at this level.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening, and it kind of makes sense, right? The governor comes and he's like, who the fuck accused my wife of being a witch? Obviously, he's not real happy about it. Imagine that. And at that point, he pardons all the witches and he says, y'all crazy. We're done with this. No more witch trials. We're going home. Pack your bags. This is bullshit. Stop it now. You guys are bad. Because, I mean, Phibbs, obviously, this wasn't the only thing going on at the time, right? The Puritan, or the early British colonies had all sorts of problems. They had the French to deal with, right? The Native Americans to deal with. Disease, for sure. And, obeying orders of the British colonies. But Salem thing going on was kind of like an afterthought, really.
Yeah.
Like, he hadn't spent a lot of time on it. So, them being accused, his wife being accused, really brought, like, some energy to the Salem witch trials. Well, enough where he was like, all right, this is bullshit. We're done with this. That's really pretty much how these really ended.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he pardoned the witches that were imprisoned.
Yeah. His wife got accused, and he's like, all right, shit's over now.
That's about enough.
Yeah. Spectral evidence was denied. Witches were pardoned.
I think it was a clever move.
Yeah.
I like to think that. Maybe, they just got lucky. It's just like, well, every woman was accused anyways at that point. They needed to go search for more, But I like to think it was a clever move.
Yeah. So all the witches were technically exonerated in 1711. But, so in 1711 is when they started offering, like, the state of Massachusetts started offering, like, money. Like, oh, hey, like, sorry.
Yeah. So
here's $20.
Imagine, and this is what happened after the trials ended, almost like immediately. There was like this big hangover moment in Salem where everyone regretted what happened.
It's like medieval times where they're like, where'd all the women go? Oh, yeah.
It was like an insane college party. You wake up in the morning, your head hurts, there's people sleeping on the ground, like shit hit the fan last night. Real bad.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't do that again. That was bad.
Yes. So basically, like, all the judges except for one.
Oh, yeah.
Like, acknowledged the fact that they were wrong.
They fucked up.
Yeah. But, yeah, the state started paying the families in 1711. And then, ironically, the last witch to be, like, have her name cleared, like, officially, like, pardoned and everything, came in 2002.
Only took 300 something years?
Yeah, only.
Who was that? Who was that was...
I don't remember who the last one was.
Bishop?
Bridget Bishop was in 2001.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's because she was against the Puritan culture. There's still Puritans in Massachusetts.
And so...
They're probably listening. Hey, fuck you guys.
Fuck you, burn. Or fuck you, hanging everybody. But yeah, it was just... When I saw that, I'm like, God damn, like, how stupid do you have to be to eventually then... It's like, alright, if you start giving out money... Be like, sorry, our bad. Like, I feel like at that point in time, it should be like, okay, yeah, you guys are good.
I think I love the thought that the government was like, all right, we're going to start apologizing to these people. We're not going to do it all at once. We're going to start with the good ones. Like, what the fuck? Like, they all got, like...
290 years later, we'll finish.
The truth is, no witches were executed in Salem. There were no witches.
Yes,
right?
There was no witches.
That's the truth.
It was just women. And
John
dudes.
Proctor. And dogs.
But, so, I went there last year, saw, like, the cool memorial they have. So they have, like, a nice little, memorial right next to a graveyard in the middle of town, where there's, like, little benches kind of sticking out of the wall of this stone fence. And each of them has, like, the name and how they were executed. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. One of the things with the trials, too, we should mention is that after they were over, they really cleaned up house. Like, they erased a lot of the documents of the trials. So, like, what actually happened in the trial rooms themselves, there's not good records on it. Because during that, like, hangover moment where they woke up, we're like, oh, shit. They went and eradicated a lot of the information. Yeah. Like, we lost more information about the trials than we'll ever know.
Yeah. And
there's still a super crazy story.
Yes.
It's a very rich story. I mean, just the fact of just people snowballing and things building up over time. And you have people, it's such a great example of greed, right? Taking over a town and crazy religion people using that as a means to
gain power,
gain their own self-interest,
Yeah.
Like, the real demon in the whole thing is Reverend Paris.
Yeah. Well,
think
and the
about it
girls.
the whole time. Yeah, I mean,
I still want to blame them.
I know they're terrible.
Because, like...
Because they obviously they weren't
those little
feeling
asshole
anything.
kids.
Dude, yeah, terrible
And then
kids.
just imagine them getting, like, accusing people and getting them murdered.
The only thing is, I still go back to the kids being
traumatized.
Yeah, super fucked up.
We'll just blame the church.
Same thing with the adults. Like, where do you draw the line? Yeah. Like maybe your parents had,
But like what I mean, you said it earlier. Like, we have movies nowadays. Like, we see fucked up shit in movies. We see, like, the ghosts and all this, the witches, and we see that as entertainment. Back then, you really had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, imagine
they didn't even know fucking dinosaurs existed.
Yeah, yeah, and then it was like, oh yeah, my neighbor called her dad an asshole, so he executed her. Like,
yeah.
Apparently that was okay too, which is fucking crazy. But the story of Salem is like this extremely good example of a system that gets corrupted and things build and get out of hand. There's hysteria. People start using things for their own interest. Unchecked mob mentality. It's eerily familiar to certain situations, like the Red Scare. It's been commonly compared to, right?
Yeah.
But really, what ended up happening out of this was an end to Puritan culture.
Yeah.
This was a catalyst for that happening. Which, thank God, because we could still be Puritans today.
Thank fucking God.
But
yeah, that was the thing. I'll
take TikTok.
Is that it did kind of bring an end to it because they allowed it to happen. They allowed it to escalate so much, and people were kind of like, "Do we really trust that?" And go ahead. And it just, thank God.
There's lasting impacts to legal systems too. Right, innocent until proven guilty. Turns out that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Otherwise you have bullshit, crazy, witches getting hung.
Yeah, and they over the years they've had theories, other things, the ergo rot.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the ergo.
So I figured we'd save it to the end just to kind of keep the story flowing. So the ergo rot, I think it was in the 70s, a Harvard professor actually looked back into it and thinking about the wet season they had and everything and them not knowing what the hell mold actually is. But ergo is, was it ergotism?
Ergo, I don't know. I think it's ergot.
Ergot. Yeah, ergot.
Ergot poisoning.
Yeah, ergot poisoning. It's a mold that grows in rye.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they would use for their bread flour and all this and that. I mean, to me, it's a very plausible thing, but the way the witch trials actually snowballed, I don't think it really was.
So yeah, we should say too that the effects of that poisoning is a lot like LSD.
You hallucinate, you have vivid dreams,
you go crazy, which is kind of a good explanation for what the girls were going through.
So maybe the girls did have that.
Maybe they did.
And then
it's heavily disputed though, I will say too.
Yeah, because just the way it happened in that the corruptness of it all, that you can't blame it all on.
Yeah, the girls too didn't have all the symptoms, right?
Yeah.
You had to have fevers and chills too. And the doctor, didn't see that when he got to him. He was just, there's no explanation, and they're just, afflicted with the devil.
The devil.
Not some mushroom.
Yeah. Well, fungus.
The truth is, we'll never know.
Yeah.
Right? We do know, too, that it didn't affect all the houses. It was just some.
I think it was the west side of Salem.
It was more likely that if someone got it, a lot of people got it. They got their food from a similar place.
Well, yeah.
So it's
you didn't have your 15 different grocery stores. You had your one place you got your rye flour from.
Yeah, from Rebecca Nurse until she was executed.
Yeah,
it was those goddamn Putnams.
Think there was any frost on the grass then?
Yeah, I know they didn't talk about the frost at all in the Salem witch trials.
I saw a cool thing about during the witch trials too in medieval Europe. Is that they actually were hunting werewolves too. So maybe that could be a future episode.
I didn't see anything about werewolves. You're making that up.
Maybe I am, maybe I'm not.
Is there vampires too? When you talk about
Well,
Team Jacob,
dude,
Team Edward.
That'd be kind of a cool episode, maybe.
What?
Vlad the Impaler,
Oh,
Dracula. He was a real person. That'd be kind of cool. But so,
yeah, if you guys enjoy the episode, we're gonna kind of wrap up here. If you do enjoy it,
not as long as I thought it was gonna be.
Please leave a review if you don't mind, or follow us on Facebook. We kind of have a pretty active Facebook account where we post content and kind of give you information on what the next episode is going to be. Our next episode is going to be about Chernobyl.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And the nuclear disaster that happened there. Obviously, there's nothing else that's ever interesting that was happened in Chernobyl. But yeah, if you guys like the show, please leave a review, leave a comment
on whatever streaming service you use. I mean, that just basically helps us kind of stay on the search bars, stay relevant to just the sites giving us, or like the homepage and stuff, just kind of boosting the show, helping us out.
Yep, with that, we'll kind of send off. Have a nice week, guys.
Yep, bye.